numbers with you here in just a second. But I wanted to mention, we're going to talk about what the state of the city is right now. And when I talk about these things, you'll think, well, council's doing a great job, and they are. We have a great council. Each council member has an area of expertise that they bring to council, and it's been very beneficial to this whole community. But what makes this operate and as successful as it is the staff that we have at the city. And you saw our police chief, you have our fire chief here, our city marshal chief, the individuals that are involved under Brian Maxwell's direction. They make this city run, and I wanted to give a shout out to them. These are some of the greatest people that I've ever worked with, and very dedicated to the city. Brian, thank you very much for the individuals you choose. It's a couple of days ago or last week, I was in a 2-day retreat with the Houston Galveston Area Council and their board of directors representing Galveston. And one of the questions was, as we were going through why we serve in the positions we do, they said, what gets you up every morning and gets you to the job that you do, the elected position? And I thought about that, and I didn't have to think long on that. The individuals in this community are so proactive and want this community to be better and really step up and give input to that. And that's what brings me to the position every day, is representing you. I'm very proud to be your mayor, but you're the ones that really fuel and give the energy to council to do what we do. And I wanted to thank everybody here. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to change this, and I'm not going to be as specific. I want to get into a lot of overarching subjects real quickly with you. The state of the city. The state of the city is doing extremely well. In business and business management, everybody thinks that the hardest part of a business, and the city is a business, is growing that business. That's not really correct. The hardest part of a business is handling success. And that's where we are right now in the city of Galveston. I could go through every aspect of our city, from the finances to tourism to the port, and I'll mention a few things here coming up. But we are been very successful in what we've done, and it's on the shoulders of a lot of people to bring us to where we are now. Our sales tax is coming in at record levels. Our hotel occupancy tax is coming in at record levels right now. Our ad valorem tax is doing extremely well. Our reserve funds are funded. Everything is doing extremely well at the city right now. And so we're going to put a lot of attention to really make this city run more efficiently and address those areas that make challenges to our community because of our success. Coming up at our city council meeting coming up Thursday, council will be bringing their goals forward for 2023. And so if you kind of check on council, you can see what council members, what their vision is coming up for the coming year for the betterment of this community. We're making a lot of other changes at the city. It was mentioned the Industrial Development Corporation that takes a half cent of our sales tax and uses it for economic development activities in the city here, will expire in 2029. And so we'll be bringing to you, the voters here, coming up this May, the ability to extend that IDC group and that funding from that half-cent sales tax for the benefit of the residents here. And that's something we've been discussing at council for a little while now. We're under a 3.5% cap on our revenue that we have here at the city. And that means that we can't go up on our revenue more than 3.5%. But our overhead expenses, especially with the pandemic and the supply chain concerns, is going up far more than that. So even though we're bringing in a lot of money, we have some constraints on that. And we've got to look at alternative revenue to bolster our revenue stream coming forward in the years to go. I would say this, that this council is looking at the future. A lot of times councils go, what can we do to make betterment, to make the community better a year from now? And yes, that's in our thinking, but we're looking what decisions that we make, what are the ramifications of those 5 and 10 years from now? Because it's easy politically to say, I vote for this, and everybody's very happy, but it has a detrimental effect 5 years down the line. And so we're looking at that very closely. And our alternative revenue streams, we're looking at that. And what we want to do, this council, we want to put emphasis on bringing in alternative revenue, but bringing that revenue from sources that are generated by tourists, not you that live here. So how do we do that? We put a tariff now on all the cruise passengers that are coming on Royal Caribbean ships. We put a tariff on those. If they have, that money comes directly to the city, to our general fund. And that is going to increase and increase every year. We're getting ready to do the carnival contracts again at the Port of Galveston. We put in that contract, and the Wharves Board told the carnival, we're not going to sign a new contract with you unless you put a tariff on these passengers. In addition to the tariffs you have, it comes to the city of Galveston to benefit our residents. They balked at that. I want to shout out to the Wharves Board. They held tight on it. They said, fine, if you don't sign this contract, you can go somewhere else. Carnival came in and said, we'll put a tariff on those passengers. And we're going to do that with Disney. The Disney contract is coming up. We're putting a tariff on Disney passengers on that. And so we're going to have this money flowing in from the passengers that come down and go on these cruise ships and clog up our traffic alleys here and put a lot of strain on our infrastructure. We're putting a tariff on those individuals. Council will be presented coming up Thursday. We're going to put $1 per car per day extra of money to come to the city of Galveston for anybody that comes down in parks to go on a cruise. And that money will be flowing into the city of Galveston from these cruise passengers to benefit our residents. We're working with the park board now. There's been a lot in the paper. People always say, if you don't want to change anything, then that's fine, but if you're going to change things, be prepared to face the chaos, and that's what you're seeing right now in the paper right now. We're sitting down and talking with the park board and re-looking at our relationship with the park board. Not that the park board has not done a great job, because they have, but some of these contracts, some of these relationships are 30 and 40 and 50 years old. And we need to come back and look at those and see where they are, if it's still appropriate for the way we operate today. And if it's not, how can we rearrange these contracts to be beneficial to the citizens of Galveston? And so that's what we're looking at, and we'll probably be looking at additional revenue with partnering with the park board in certain ways to bring that to the city here. One of my, Chief Valley mentioned, we have a mental health program that is coming forth. This is a great program. Chief Valley has worked very hard on this, working with Chief Olson on this. He'll be bringing this to council here shortly. It used to be when you dial 911, you got either fire, or you got emergency, or you got police, and that's it. We're adding a fourth to that. When you dial 911, if it's a mental health concern that really doesn't require police to be there, we're going to have mental health officers with the police to help handle that situation. It's one of the newest programs in the state of Texas, and I think that'll be very, very valuable for our citizens here moving forward on that. The Port of Galveston, let me say this about the Port of Galveston. I'm honored to serve on the Wharves Board and represent the city for that. So many times when I got on the Wharves Board, I heard people say that, you know, the Port of Galveston is a diamond in the rough. but we've never really developed that port over there. Well, let me tell you, that has changed, and that is changing drastically right now. Port of Galveston is probably one of the only ports in the United States that does not have taxing authority. They have no way to raise public money. They're like a private business. They have to get money from the individuals that come into the port and those entities, and that has to pay their expenses, and they sink or swim based on that. So the Port of Galveston, they are booming in the cruise industry. I can tell you right now, you've seen a little bit in the paper on this. We have a long list of cruise lines that want into Galveston. This is the place to be for cruise lines in the United States. And they are offering anything they can to get in here. The next cruise terminal discussion you will see will be at Pier 1416, where Del Monte is. Del Monte is moving out. They did not want to stay here. They're going to be moving to Freeport for some number of different technical reasons. But that particular area will probably be, in the future, our 4th cruise terminal. And MSC is partnering with Norwegian, and they are coming forward, and MSC and Norwegian are saying, tell us what you want us to do, we'll pay anything. We'll build the terminal, we'll do all kinds of other things, we'll bring more cargo here to you, we'll build you a parking garage. We want to be in Galveston. So you'll be seeing an advancement and expansion of the cruise industry. But we learned due to the pandemic that we have to be diversified here in Galveston and the port. When those cruise lines shut down, we had no money coming in from the cruise lines. And so we've got to be diversified. So we're taking all of this net revenue from these cruise lines and we're expanding the cargo side of the port. And you're going to see a lot of changes in the next year and a lot of construction going on to bring in more cargo coming in here. And we've got particular cargo lines that are in Houston right now, and they have contacted the Port of Galveston, said we want out of Houston, we want in Galveston. It's quicker for them, it's a lot easier for them, it's more efficient for them. So we're getting ready to see an expansion of cargo. Let's talk about Pelican Island. What an untapped resource. I've been talking about that since I've been on council and as your mayor. It's been one of my personal goals to move that forward. You saw in the paper recently the county commissioners, thank you, Commissioner Juicy, has stepped forward and put emphasis on saying, Port of Houston, if you're not going to use this Pelican Island, then we're going to force you to use Pelican Island legally. So we need to do something for that, and you need to step up and start becoming active on that property. They have 1,100 acres over there in Pelican Island, and those 1,100 acres are very prime property over there. In response to that also, we scheduled a meeting with the Port of Houston, their administrative staff and their executive director. We had this meeting scheduled prior to the county coming out with their thoughts on this. We had it yesterday with them. Giving you this hadn't been made public yet. Port of Houston has said, let's hit the ground running. We're putting together a stakeholder group. The city will be putting together a stakeholder group. We'll be working with the county on this, with the port, and we're going to sit down, and the Port of Houston now, they want to do something to make that viable over there at Pelican Island. And so we're going to push very hard on that. That's jobs, that's taxing money that would come into this city and be very, very valuable to this city here. And so you're going to see a lot of action coming up with Pelican Island coming in. We came out of the box with our discussions, City Manager Maxwell and I yesterday. We came out of the box and said, we want to buy that. How much is it? They said, you really want to buy this? And we said, we do, if we can work out the finances. They said, we're open to that. Let's sit down and see what we can work out to do that. So it could be that we'll be bringing that land back into the city of Galveston, which will be a game changer for a lot of different things that are coming forward.
We can
And
buy from our bake sale
that's exactly right. So, Pelican Island Bridge, we're working with the county on that. The county has been a good partner on this. I'll give you the bottom line on it. I talked with TxDOT here just recently. It looks like the city of Galveston is gonna own that bridge. It looks like the city of Galveston will be the local sponsor for that bridge, and we will sign all the documents to make this happen. We've been working very, very diligently to make sure, we've been working very diligently to make this happen. And it has to be a combination of a partnership with the county and other entities. And we've been working behind the scenes for about a year and a half now with the county to make sure we can bring this forward. This is the sticking point. We got everything worked out, and TxDOT, we told TxDOT, we'll take over the bridge, we'll make it happen, but we can't cover the cost overruns. Cost overruns on this, as you know, building something nowadays, you probably know this for sure, could be $20, $30 million on this bridge. The city of Galveston can't commit to that. We pushed and pushed and pushed, and TxDOT before the holidays came and told us verbally, we'll cover that cost overrun if you own this bridge. Right now, we ask them, as we do the GLO, we want it in writing. We're waiting to get that in writing from the contract. So I think you're gonna see something. I'm going out on a limb here, but I think this calendar year, you're gonna see some contracts signed and some things moving forward on that bridge. So this is gonna be great for the city of Galveston. Let's talk about tourism for just a second. You've seen a lot in the paper, and I mentioned something about the activities with the park board. But the park board does a fantastic job in many, many areas, and that's one of the reasons we're so successful here. So we're working with the park board. We got with them. We need to make a complete change at Stewart Beach Park. We need to make a complete change at Seawolf Park in some manner. The park board, at our last meeting of council, city council told the park board, you guys put together some ideas, put together some plans, put together a concept, bring it back to council, and then we'll see what we can work with you together and approve that and move forward. That's coming back to council in March. So you're gonna see some particulars on Stewart Beach Park, on Seawolf Park, and some others coming up here shortly on that. USS Texas, we've been working with them real quickly. Long story short, they want to be at Pier 20, Pier 19, 21, right there by the Mosquito Fleet. This Wharfs Board has told them that land has a long-term lease. Tillman Fertitta now, because he got that lease from the Mitchells recently here and bought that lease. We told him if you can get Tillman's approval to put that ship right there, the Wharfs Board would consider that. They're working with Tillman. I got a call from the head of the USS Texas. They said that they pretty well worked out the details. They're getting ready to finalize those, and they'll be coming to the Wharfs Board shortly. It's a possibility that you'll be seeing that Texas sitting out there where Olympia Grill, just a little east of that, not directly in front of that, but a little east of that, in that area down there. This is me. I think the community and the council has this thought. I don't want to speak for them, but personally, I've been interfacing with the USS Texas group a lot. I'd love to have them here. It would be a feather in our cap to have that iconic ship here. But it should not be done with residents' money. They need to raise their own money on that. They're doing that. We told them that. They have a campaign going. So they're putting together, and they'll be coming, Terry, they'll be coming to the state legislature for more money also. Coming up this legislative session on that. Park Board's doing a good job. There was a couple of other things. Before I close, I want to mention about short-term rentals. They are registering them at the park board right now. There is not as many as we thought. Now, we're tracking down the outliers and those that may not be registering and coming forth. We thought we'd have a little over 5,000. It looks like it's going to be around 4,500, somewhere around there, of short-term rentals. As you've been following it, council stepped up. We put a registration fee of $250 on short-term rentals. That is going to raise, you can do the math and see how much money that would raise, approximately $1 million. That's going to pay for software to track these companies. It's going to pay for a 24-hour emergency call service. So you as a resident, if you have a short-term rental, at 2 a.m. they're causing problems, you call this number, you will have a response, and that short-term rental has to have somebody within an hour or less has to be on site at that to control that concern. And we're going to be enforcing that, and you're going to be seeing a lot of action along those lines in the city marshal office. Will probably be expanding to help address those concerns that we run into with short-term rentals. So we're going to be doing, and we're going to be monitoring that closely, working with the park board on that to make sure that's in keeping with what the community wants. I could go on and on and on. I'm not going to. I promised Brian I would cut this short. So what I'd like to do, though, is before we bring Brian up, are there any questions that you would like to ask? Yes, sir.
Why did the city put a big planter box and curbs in the emergency lane in the middle of the city?
A planter box? Yeah. You know, let me say this, aesthetics and traffic calming. I just won't go through a lot of discussion. Aesthetics and traffic calming. And that's why we put it up there. It was part of the 27th Street project, and that was included in that project there. That particular thing, I got a lot of calls about that. Why in the heck did we do such a thing? If you go up there and really watch the traffic, it's doing what they said it would do. It's a traffic calming, and it's aesthetically.
It also had 0 pedestrian accidents ever since that happened.
Yeah.
It's a safe crossing and a safe haven for people to be, as opposed to just playing wrong with the seawall.
My concern is in the middle of the summertime when the traffic is dead stop. How is it police and fire department?
If it's dead stop everywhere, and our police and fire are very adept at getting anywhere from the side street that they need to get. I promise you that. And
Yeah.
slow response time out there.
And let me say this,
And trust me, they don't move things.
and to your question, sir, and your concerns and your skepticism about it, that's not, we set it up there where we can move that if we want to. It's not anchored into the concrete. We knew that there might be potential concerns, and so we just set it up there to see what happens. So far, it has been an extremely positive for that area, unbelievably positive. It's like the bump outs on 27th Street. I got a ton of calls about the bump outs on 27th. You're going to cause terrible accidents. Why would you ever do such a thing? 27th Street has become an unbelievably safe street because of those bump outs. It's a traffic calming device, and really works to protect people in the streets there. Any other questions?
Right behind you.
Oh, yes, hi,
Hi,
Peggy, how are
good
you?
morning. Thank you for continuing the tradition of the mayor and city manager being our first presenters of the year. So this is absolutely great. Thank you. No question, just a comment. I really appreciate your regular attendance at the HGAC board meetings. I think very few people understand the opportunities that come through HGAC with the monies. In the past, we've not always had regular Galveston participation. You have been stellar in that capacity. So, personal note, and I'm sure for all of us, thank you, and your seat at the table means a lot to us.
Thank you very much. Houston Galveston Area Council, a lot of people don't know who they are. They funnel the money for most of the projects that we're talking about, comes through them. And a lot of their approval comes through them. They funnel billions of federal and state money to the different municipalities they control. So we haven't had good representation in the past. We've had no representation in the
Well,
past.
I did. When I was on council before, I made every single meeting.
There you go, Councilman
And
Ross.
then there was a lapse, right?
And then there was a lapse.
There was a
Of
lapse.
6 years, to be exact.
And when I became mayor, that was the first thing. We have got to get out there and develop these partnerships. We can't do this ourselves. And so, thank you for that. Thank you, I appreciate it.
And just to add on, the other part of it, which is where all road projects begin, is the TPC, which is the Transportation Policy Committee, and I'm back on it.
We put Councilmember Robb back on there, and we need to have our representation out there. And we're doing that in all areas. TML, I've just been appointed, or I'm working with Sally, hopefully, to be appointed to one of their committees at the TML, Texas Municipal League, that represents cities. We're gonna get out there, I think, but you'll
Sharon
be
and I
attending
are
the
going to
National
the
League
National
meeting.
League.
Sharon Lewis, our city manager, will be attending. And while we're talking about Sharon, very quickly, just mention it, I won't go into details. We are moving forward with the city to be a facilitator to put together a national Juneteenth museum here on the island. It's going to be quite a opportunity for this island. Thank you. I could go on and on, but Brian, come on up and thank you. Oh, yes, Joe. Yes.
Just a comment for you and Brian. The county has never worked as close as we have been in the last couple of years with the city of Galveston. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Joe. Very good. I just want, before Brian takes the microphone, I want to mention one other thing. I thoroughly enjoy being your mayor. I put a lot of time into it, but it's something that I enjoy. Thank you for having me as your mayor. I want you to know I take that very personally. It's very passionate to me to represent you the best way I can. Thank you very much.
Obviously, the mayor and I have a different definition of short.
I'm following
I'm gonna be, to
Sally's
be clear, I'm gonna be Danny DeVito short, not Shaquille O'Neal short. I'm gonna just touch on a few things really quick, because everything got covered pretty well. We continue to work on our budget. Our budget's a living document. We passed our budget with a pretty good tax decrease this past year. The mayor touched on some challenges we have with the revenue caps. I want to just point something out to you. We're a city of 50,000 people, just barely over 50,000 with the latest census. If they can ever agree on what that census actually is, we are pretty much dead on 50,000 people. There's a lot of things a city of 50,000 people don't do that we do. We operate our own trash service. That's by charter, the voters put that in. We have a full-time, full-staff fire department. Most cities of 50,000, hell, there's no other city except for Texas City that has one in the county. Most cities of 50,000 don't have an airport. This goes on and on. They don't have full-time parks departments. They don't have all the beach services that we offer. And one thing I want to point out to you is we're one of the only cities in the state of Texas, if not the nation, where our public safety cost consumes 100% of your ad valorem tax, your property tax. Most cities can operate their whole operation on their ad valorem tax, and they get a little extra sales tax. Police and fire alone take every dollar that we collect in property tax and a third of what we collect in sales tax. That's just to operate the police and fire department. That doesn't even include EMS. That doesn't include our marshal service. That doesn't include any of the other law enforcement services that we provide, or public safety services that we provide. That's going to be our challenge moving forward, because we are in a very precarious situation, because we're relying on our most volatile revenue to fund a critical operation. I think we've done a very good job with that. We have outstanding reserves. Council has taken a strong stance on us having 120 days reserves, which most coastal cities don't have. So the city's in great financial shape, but I'm not talking about while Brian's sitting here, but the next Brian that comes along, this is gonna be a challenge for them. Because our public safety costs go up probably about 10% a year at a minimum. And we're capped at 3.5% on our revenue caps. So it's imperative that and that's why we're undergoing all these revenue reviews that we're doing now. And I want to touch on that too. You keep reading in the newspaper things that this is a money grab, this is an assault on this or that. There's nothing further from the truth. What we are doing is we're adjusting our mindset. Part of the reason the city has gotten into this position is because we had issues in the past. We sold ourselves, or we were trying to sell ourselves as the Walmart of the Gulf Coast. We are not the Walmart of the Gulf Coast. Hell, at least let's be Target, all right? But we can be better. I'd rather be Neiman's. But because we were that way, we were throwing anything and everything and giving money to anything and everything to try to grow tourism, to try to grow cruise business, to try to grow our port business. We don't need to do that anymore. We've been found. How many of you here found us? I mean, you're here. You live here now. You love it here, just like everybody else does. We don't need to be that way anymore. We need to now manage our success, like the mayor said. And we also need to rethink all of these agreements. We negotiated out of a point of desperation 25 years ago. We're not in that position anymore, and we need to get out of that mindset. And we need to maximize now. We've gotten what we asked for. We've got 7 million visitors a year. We have every major cruise line in the world coming here. We have a very busy port moving all kinds of different and various cargo. We've achieved everything that we said we wanted to achieve. Now we have to manage it. And we have to manage it to the benefit of the people that pay taxes here. And it's no longer acceptable for us to go to the taxpayers and say, you have to pony up for this because it's going to be good for Galveston long term. We're there. Now it's time for all those things that we did for long-term growth in Galveston to start paying us back. And that's what we're trying to do to manage this growth. Part of we have a 170 person basically police department. We have a 110 basically person fire department. Cities of 50,000 don't have that. League City's got 2.5 times our population. They don't have that. There's a reason we do it. It's because we have 7 million visitors a year here. And we have to manage that. I don't think it's fair to tax 50,000 people that live here to pay for all that. I think that's a fair statement. And I don't think there's anybody on the Wharves Board or the Parks Board that even comes close to disagreeing with that. It's just how we get there. And right now we're making the sausage. It's not real pretty, but I promise you when it's done, especially for the people that live here, it's going to be delicious. So stick with us, it's going to be good. One thing I want to touch on, had an interesting meeting. I don't know how many of you are from Houston, but if you remember Russ Poppy, he was the head of the Harris County Flood Control District. He now works for an engineering firm called HNTV. Commissioner Giusti came over with him the other day. And TxDOT's actually talking about now another bridge to Bolivar. They have learned that we pretty much have as many ferries as we're ever going to be able to operate, and it's not enough. And anybody that's tried to cross that ferry in the summer knows it's not enough. So county is spending a lot of resources getting Highway 87 raised and usable over there. Now we got to get people to it. So interestingly enough, TxDOT is paying HNTB to do this study for a bridge. Now when we met with the Port of Houston, they didn't like my idea, which was a nice little 8-foot bridge just north of our channel to keep anything from going up the channel. But we are looking at a bridge. And we've also talked to them because they consider Highway 87 everything from the foot of the causeway basically across the ferry now. And they were talking to us is how can we improve Broadway? I said I'm not really interested in doing a whole lot more with Broadway, but I am very interested in doing more with Harborside Drive. Harborside Drive really needs to be that access point, especially with how many cruisers do we have down there? Yeah, I mean, get three ships and try to go downtown. Yeah. So we're working with them now, and they received this very well. And we're talking about things like maybe elevating Harborside Drive through downtown. That way you can have clear space and pedestrian space underneath it, better access to the cruise terminals, better flow back and forth, less flooding, better access to UTMB. So there's a whole lot of possibilities there. Is this going to happen while I'm here, while the mayor's here, Marie's here? Probably not. Probably Joe, because I don't think Joe's ever going to leave. But it's probably going to happen in our probably mid-range future. So it's important that we're having those discussions, and I was very happy to be part of that. Big Mardi Gras coming, from all indications, except for the weather just being horrendous these past few weeks and months. We're hoping for a big Mardi Gras, and so far all the bookings and everything indicate that's going to be the case. We had our first big planning meeting with everybody. We have our individual meetings early on, but yesterday, I don't think anybody realizes what really goes on behind the scenes to make these big events happen. David Smith heads that up for the city of Galveston, but we had both our chiefs on that call yesterday, and I will tell you, there is no, especially a city of 50,000, but there is no other city. We are the example of what other cities do for special events. We can handle more people and move them efficiently in and off this island without incident better than anybody else. So kudos to the two chiefs that are here and to the marshal who works hard on that to keep everything going. So very good. Quick touch on streets. Marie mentioned this. We're finishing up in Bay Harbor. They're going to shift back to the far east end of Marie's district and finish up the streets in Gulf Village. They've got one street in Driftwood, and then they're moving back west. So we have changed the mentality a little bit of how we're doing streets. Little background. When I first got to the city, a little over 12 years ago now, and that's just really scary to me. When I got there 12 years ago, the city did not own a paving machine. The city did not own a milling machine. The city did not have the proper dump trucks or anything else, but these little small trucks. We weren't paving anything. When we stood up our first paving crew, one of the concerns was, and we were way behind the 8 ball, our PCI score, which is our street assessment score, was way down in the 60s, pretty poor. Council was concerned about spreading the wealth equally when we started paving streets. So we have our assessment of money that we do through your 8% set aside in your general fund. And what we would do is we have a engineering firm that assesses all of our streets every few years, and they're doing that right now. You'll see it looks like the Google car driving around. They're assessing all the streets, and they can assess a crack in a street up to I think it's an 1/8 of an inch with their cameras. It's pretty spectacular what they're doing. And we do that so we categorize our streets. It takes the politics out of it. It's not that I'm good friends with Art Wilcox or that the mayor is good friends with Marty Fluke or somebody else. That has nothing to do with our street surveys. We do streets based on worst to best. But what we were doing that was a little different is we would take all the worst streets and we try to divide them up amongst council districts. So that way everybody got a little love. But I think we've got to the point now, our PCI score is actually one of the highest in the county, in the upper 80% range, which is way better than Houston and other cities. Now that we've done that, we're going to go to a full, true worst to best scenario, where we're just going to take the worst streets. And if the worst streets are in District 6, they're all going to get done in District 6. If the worst streets are in District 1, they're all going to get done. Actually, the districts don't matter, and we're not going to track it. I will say up to this point, over 50% of our street dollars have all gone west. But that makes sense because even though you're only 1/6 of the population west, you're 50% of the geography. So that's where that comes from, but that's good news for things moving forward out here. The freeze went extremely well at Christmas. My staff was very grateful. One, I had COVID and couldn't get in their way. Two, we learned a lot from the last one. We were one of the fewer cities of our size that didn't have to go boil water or any of that stuff like they did in other cities. We have Trino Pedraza, which he mentioned, and he was going to be here today, but he and I had a late date dealing with sewer last night, and I told him to sleep in this morning. We have a joke that we spend more Friday nights together than we do with our wives. But he's done a great job with it and automating our system. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but in the past, we would have low pressure issues in the summer when everybody comes out here and starts working and everything. We don't have those issues anymore. We've improved our infrastructure, and because of the technology, we can now run our pumps all in tandem. So we had 60 PSI at San Luis Pass this entire summer. We had no issues. And that's a first for us. And we also are we're going forward with our automated metering system. Some of you may already have them. We should be complete in about another 18 months to 24 months with that. That too helps us because we can sense pressure at everybody's house. And we're going to be able to remote and work on these things. If you are out of town and you feel like there's water flow, you're going to be able to see it. Or if somebody calls it, we can actually shut off your water at the meter for you remotely. So we're going to have a whole lot of things that are coming with that. But because of this technology, we were able to keep things going. We had as many leaks as we did during the last freeze, I will tell you that. But we kept the water on, we kept the pressure up. We had a better working relationship technology-wise with Gulf Coast Water Authority, so that's a good thing. But I will caution each of you that despite all this really crappy weather that we've had, the Brazos River is still running extremely low, and that's where our water comes from. So we're working with our rate analysts now, but Gulf Coast Water Authority is already sending us very strong warnings that unless we get a good amount of rain this spring, we're going to be looking at some water issues coming up this summer. So just to be prepared that can be the case coming forward. Water is going to become more precious around here than anything else. So we just need to be real cognizant of that, and that's part of what we're doing with all of our new systems and AMI and everything else. Is we're going to do our best to not waste any water, but we understand that there's going to be an issue if we don't get some rain. We touched on the mental health unit real quick. There's a component of that I want to really bring to your attention. That's what we call a force multiplier. And right now, the mayor is running around crazy on his porch naked again, and he's been drinking and all these things. That's usually a 3 to 4 police car situation. And he's done this many times. We know that. But we have to send the 4 units anyway. Well, hopefully with this unit, that's going to be identified. This unit's going to be a multidisciplinary unit. It's going to have a paramedic on it. It's going to have a mental health professional. It's going to have a law enforcement officer. They're going to be able to go out, and they're going to be able to deal with this situation, even if they have to transport. And we're not going to have to tie up 3 and 4 units to deal with this. I cannot tell you enough without going into a whole lot of detail, and you probably know who I'm talking about, how many of these calls that we have, and how many of our calls tie back to mental health issues. It is disturbing to me, but it's just the fact of life, and it's not unique to Galveston. So I think we're a little ahead of the 8 ball by doing this program. Council's going to have very frequent updates on it because they are investing in it and they're putting money into it. And as they do that, they're going to see the benefit of it. And hopefully we can show a benefit to it either in increased service levels or even some savings on the other side once it goes. So very excited to get that started. Probably the hardest part of setting the whole thing up is going to be buying their van in today's world, but we're on top of that. Before I leave, and I'm going to see, that's what short looks like. I'm going to, we do have both of our police chiefs here, our marshal, and Nick here who's going to be your marshal out here out west. These guys do a great job, and they don't get thanked enough, and neither do their guys. And again, Trino was going to be here this morning, but if you go to Paco's this weekend, thank Trino because Paco got fixed. So, with his issues last night. So, I want to thank everybody that works for me a lot. They do a fantastic job. We run a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour operation. We track overhead of city all across the state. Galveston County's overhead runs about 3. Galveston's, did I say Galveston County? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. 20 years at the county and it's still here. The city of Galveston operates at about a 3 to 4% overhead rate. Most cities, especially our size, operate at 10 to 12%. We operate at 3 to 4%. We run pretty lean, and that's why if you see a standoff, you're probably going to see the chief there working. If you see a fire, you're going to see Charlie working the hoses. If there's a sewer backup, you're probably going to see the city manager there helping them, just like he was last night. Not because I like empanadas at Paco's, and that's a dangerous thing to not have those, but because it's important that we do these things. We run thin. So I want to make sure that I extend my appreciation to them because vacations and weekends just don't happen for most of our top staff, and we're very appreciative of what they do. Does anybody have any questions for me? Whoa.
Behind you.
You know what? I'll start with you because you sat with me and you were nice.
You don't know him very well.
Thank you, Marty. With the known information that the city has, that the county has, from the Galveston Coastal Water Authority, and the black cloud that is just right in the horizon for us being short on water, why is there still not any movement to have a water desalination plant put on the Gulf Coast to help alleviate this
be happy to know the Gulf Coast Water Authority, Brandon Wade, who heads up Gulf Coast Water Authority, lives right across the street here. They are actively looking at that, and they're also looking at other take points, because rarely is there a drought in all of the big water systems. Rarely is there a drought in the Trinity system and the Brazos system at the same time, or the Colorado system. So they're looking at cross connections as well as desal. At this point, cross connections are the more economic way to do it, but the desal is definitely on their list. There is no way Galveston by itself could ever do a desal plant, because we don't treat our water here. Our water comes to us treated. We add a little package to it here on the island, mainly because of UTMB and other things to keep things at a certain level, but everything comes treated to us. So it's important that Gulf Coast Water Authority, as the regional water person, does that. They're making a lot of improvements. They're making a lot of canal improvements. Actually, part of that I-45 project that drives us all crazy is part of a bridge over their canal system there right at DeMontron. So they're continuing to work on this, and they've got other solutions. However, I don't know that any of them in a severe drought is going to make a whole lot of difference immediately for us, but they're on top of it. So don't think that they're not.
And I would mention too on that, they're putting emphasis on brackish water.
Yes.
They've already looked at seawater here, and it's just not economically viable. So they're going up a little further in the mainland and going to put emphasis on brackish water to do that.
Yeah, if there's a desal plant in Galveston County, it's going to be probably somewhere on Dickinson Bayou, not down here at the coast. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question. With the hot tax, will the issue, like if a city wants to get some of that money, does that have to be resolved on the state level, or would that get, like what we read in the paper, would that get resolved
Well,
with the city level?
yes and yes, but let me go back more. There's always, you know, I mean, 80% of my job is just managing rumors. The other 20% is probably starting them. But 80% is managing rumors. And one of the rumors is this is a money grab. The city's going to start paying for city services with hot tax. That's not the case. And they point to the fact that it's on our legislative agenda. Sally, how many years has that been on our legislative agenda?
Quite a while.
Since I've been at the city, is to try to use hot tax for purposes that are still tourism related, that are still marketing related, but that are also takes the burden off local residents. That's a common practice that's shared on multiple coastal cities' legislative agendas. It's not specific to Galveston. There's very specific uses for hot. The city would never ever try to do anything that's not legal with hot. I would much rather partner and try to do things and accomplish that without having all this discord, and I think we're going to get there. But the main goal here is to try to maximize the benefit to the residents while still, we don't want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. So we want to make sure that we continue to manage that effectively. So the answer is yes and yes, but I just want to make sure everybody knows we're not planning on taking hot tax money and hiring 50 police officers to patrol the neighborhoods. That's myth.
Nor is that anything that we requested in
No.
our legislative
No.
agenda. It is something that we simply have indicated as a support item because public safety is an important factor when trying to promote tourism.
That's correct. And nobody wants to visit a city that's unsafe.
Yeah.
Sir, you were sitting right next to her. I think you had a question. Uh-huh.
Aruba's a desert island, and they have a desalination plant that pulls water straight out of the Caribbean.
Mhm.
It's the best water I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
Also, the 1,100 acres on Pelican Island, that'd be a good place for them.
You vote. Yes, ma'am, you were first.
Yeah, I'm now in the Hollywood area, and they have done some major work there when they put the sewer system through.
Mhm.
And we were told that the streets would be fixed after that. So in this new system that you've got, how can I find out where Hollywood is? Because the roads are just a mess there, and nothing's been done.
No,
and
they're
I
on-
saw your little, they put a thing on, I heard, but the big trucks avoid her. They come through on Q&A because they can turn easier.
Right. I will tell you that our last street survey, the one that we're still working off of, is online. You can see your street rated on there. It's about 2.5 years old. As soon as the new survey is complete, it'll be online, and you'll be able to see where your street
So
is
do
and
I
where
go
it
to the
ranks.
city?
City website. The old survey's on there. I will tell you we're in the process right now. Like I said, look for the little Google cars driving around.
I saw it there.
Yeah, and if you saw them going down your street, that should be an indication that you're probably going to be higher on the list. So, but they're going to cover every single street in Galveston. So, yes, sir.
You
keep on mentioning hotel tax,
Yes.
and I just heard before, we've got 4,500 VBOs now.
Mhm.
When you look on the internet, there's 35,000 or so homes on the island, with 45% of them being actual residential.
Mhm.
When you look at the numbers, that means that you've got a lot less that are actual real homes when you include the VBOs. Have you thought about changing the classification of a VBO from a home with property tax home values to a business with business tax values, which would get you a lot more money outside of it?
Couldn't agree with you more. However, I believe there's a Supreme Court ruling that claims that short-term rental use of a home is a residential use.
Tar
and it-
versus Timberwood.
Yeah.
Because we're getting killed with the taxes, because we have it as a second home, we've never rented it, we will never rent our house. And now we're competing with people who are paying 3 and 4 times the market price.
That's, I'm glad you brought that topic up. That's a concern with short-term rentals. So far, the state courts and the state legislature, to a certain extent, are looking at short-term rentals as a residential operation, not a commercial operation, which to me is just crazy. But anyway, we're gonna be addressing that, we're gonna be looking at that, we're gonna be working with our legislative individuals on that. But that's the basis of all the concerns that we're running into, is they're residential, but we're gonna address that.
And not unique to Galveston. I'm in a coalition of city managers of the highest short-term rental cities that exist. And believe it or not, little Galveston's almost at the top. And of course, we do a better job of registering them and tracking them. But it's a concern in all the cities, so it's not unique to Galveston that we're pushing for. Sure.
Just to add on, we've also had discussions with Cheryl Johnson on how we might be able to put a property tax rate on the furniture of a house, because many states and cities actually, or counties, charge property tax because they are generating revenue. So we have talked to her how we might do that.
Yeah, and that's basically, if you own a business, you have to render. You have to show that you have X number of computers, X number of desks, all those things. If this is truly regardless of the zoning use being residential, if you're operating it as a business, the beds, the TVs, everything else, that, should that be rendered as a business asset? So that's one of the things Cheryl is looking at. Bruce?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you three for all your service that you do for the city. But since we're talking about water, what can we do to get TxDOT to water those beautiful palm trees at the end of the seawall?
Well, nothing. We've tried that, and they've already replanted them a couple of times.
I know the second set is now dying.
Yeah, well, we're actually, but there's a second reason they're dying, and that's because they didn't plant them deep enough.
Well,
And I don't know why they even put them there, but our water truck's up there, if you see it. We're watering it on a regular
you've got a
basis.
water main within 100 feet,
Yeah.
right? There's a fire hydrant, and it's like,
Yeah, no,
it's just so sad to
Our
see.
trucks, because, we water the grass and then we have to mow the grass. I mean, TxDOT did that without asking us.
I know, but it's
And,
the entryway to the west end, and they're beautiful trees if you've ever bought them. You know how
Yeah.
expensive those trees
Yeah, I
are,
know.
and they're just dying.
Bought them a couple
Again.
of times now in my backyard.
While we're talking about streets, I just want to give you a heads up. We're partnering with the Park Board on this. City's carrying the ball on this too. 25th Street for Mardi Gras, from Seawall all the way down the harbor side, will be an unbelievable lighted corridor for the city. Go down there and look at it. You can see sections of it now. That whole strip will be that way. We've got lights that'll be different colors.
Just don't go now, they're turned off, because they're expanding, but they'll be on for Mardi Gras.
They'll be red, white, and blue for 4th of July. They're gonna be all different colors. They'll stay there permanently.
Yeah.
It is quite a
Yeah, we
display.
can change the colors, we can,
September 1st.
they're going up and down the trees. So, do what now?
September 1st, they'll be sapphire blue.
They'll be, yeah.
For my
For
birthday.
Marie's birthday, we'll turn them blue. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question. I'm in Sea Isle, and I purchased my property in 2009. It was built in 1973. I am just now learning that, and I've called the city out probably maybe 10 times in the past 12 years. There's an old water line in the back of my property that several of the old homes are still on, which I did not know. There's meters on them, and so we're in the middle of a remodel. so we have a licensed plumber that's running ours out to the new line. So there's new lines in the neighborhood. I'm just wondering why the city, because that line is constantly, like my yard is collapsing. So.
Yeah, I
why is
mean,
this- why
it's
is
a
this
problem
so
all over
big?
town. We have water lines under people's houses and everything else in
But if there's
Galveston.
a new water line, why don't?
Well, it just depends. We'd have to look and see where the new line is. And of course, remember, I can't go on your property. So they would, those homeowners would then have to be responsible for paying to move to the new line and a new tap and all that, which would cost them, as you know,
$3,200.
yeah, a lot of money. But if you'll email me your address, I'll have I'll have Trino look at it
Okay.
to see, and it may already be in the plans. I don't know. He can tell you. Yes, sir.
Brian, do you have an update on 61st Street in Broadway?
Yeah, I do actually. I thought the mayor was going to touch on that.
What was that?
The TxDOT project. Believe it or not, met with TxDOT. They are still talking about letting this project in this summer here in Galveston. I think that's optimistic, but I think it's probably going to be later this year. But the 60, and that, so all that construction you enjoy on 45, coming to a city near you, it's going to be all the way down to 61st Street. 61st Street will have a flyover exiting the island. And there's logic behind that. I need to be able to get people out of here in a hurry. I would rather meter and matriculate people into the island because I can't handle the influx. We stack them up on 61st Street, we stack them up on the seawall, we stack them up everywhere. We can't move that many cars coming onto the island. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. And we're ready to get, that's why we're doing this flyover at 61st Street. It will take off basically at the foot of the bridge there on 61st Street, right by the boat ramp, the new boat ramp, and it will lift off and curve around and drop you just past Home Depot, right on the freeway. And it should be 2 lanes exiting. It'll be designed for 2 lanes. Whether they operate 2 lanes at first or not will be determined by study, but they're going to build it to accommodate 2 lanes. That will also provide us, the single low spot in the I-45 system for evacuation purposes is underneath the 61st Street overpass. So that also gives us safe evacuation, buys us a little bit more time on evacuation, especially for you guys that are coming that way. So they say they're gonna let it in the middle of this year. I think that's optimistic because they haven't acquired any of the right-of-way that they need yet. And I think there's gonna have some issues with that, but I would think realistically, by the end of this year, they will have an awarded contract in early 2024, and it's going to be pandemonium.
How long do you think the construction will take?
Oh, good God. Probably, I would think it's probably a minimum of a 3 to 4 year project. It's not going to go any faster than what you're seeing up the road.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, guys. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thanks so much again, Brian. Mayor, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. How about a nice round again for the mayor? Doing such a great job for the city of Galveston. Our next meeting is February 18th, and it's going to be the City of Galveston Planning Department. So it should be a pretty good one. Brian had mentioned the Gulf Coast Water Authority with Brandon Wade. He's going to be our guest speaker at our July meeting. So we'll hear all about the project and where we're going to get some more water. If there aren't any more questions, thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a great program again with the mayor and city manager. Thank you again.